I made a post on my social media, Instagram and Facebook, asking if anybody would be interested in seeing the process that I use to put color on largemouth bass. Had a pretty good reception of it, so I decided I'm going to go ahead and film it. And so right now I'm going to just kind of go through the steps that I use to paint a largemouth bass reproduction mount. This is not going to be like a how-to video. I mean, you're going to get a pretty good gist of it, but it's not really an in-depth how-to video. No, I don't go into a ton of detail on why you do certain things, but so stay tuned. I hope you enjoy. So right now I'm just putting on the very first color. Actually, the very first step that I do is this is all just totally white. I install all the fins with epoxy, and then this stuff, this gray stuff that you see right here is actually, it's called Epoxy Sculpt. It's a two-part system that you mix equal halves, mix it together. It's like you sculpt it like clay, but it doesn't shrink or crack when it dries, and you can paint it even when it's wet. So I use that, and then what I do is I go in with my modeling tools, and I sculpt in, you know, some scales right here at the edge, and then these little fin rays I put in, you know, like kind of like this as I go. So I do that. That's to transition that line to blend the fin in, and then I airbrush black umber all over the whole thing. Anywhere where there's going to be some darker detail, a little bit on the bottom as well. And it's pretty much like a dark gray coating over the whole fish. And then I take 4/0 steel wool, take the steel wool, and then I rub it all over the fish and take all that black back off. And then it leaves, actually there's a little bit that I accidentally left up here. You can see, you can't really do this with one hand, but see that? Came right off. So then it leaves all the scale detail in here, and you get a little bit of the base coloring in these random thick these little spots, and you'll see that come through at the very end product. All this, you're layering tons and tons of color on here, and it just brings out, it gives it depth, and it's amazing. You'll see it at the end. So this yellow on a lot of our northern strain bass, it actually comes way down almost to the edge of the belly line. So I'm going to just color this all over the next couple minutes here, get it all scribbled on. See, it's all scribbled. This is a watercolor pencil by Derwent, Deep Cadmium 6. Actually, this is starting to get short, and it's the only one I have, so I need to get another one to do. I have a yellow perch coming up here soon, so. But I'm going to color this, and then I'll be back in just a minute. The one thing I failed to mention is that the back of the bass is considerably darker, and it gets lighter as you go down. This yellow you leave on just as thick the whole way down. It's the next few colors that you do that you start to darken that and blend it and fade it out as you get down to the belly. Okay, I've got all this yellow on here. Now it kind of, the lighting is, yeah, that's more like what I'm seeing. The lighting's crazy with these fluorescent lights. But, so the next step is I just filled this with water. Like I said, these are watercolored pencils, so they're water activated. And you're going to see a huge difference in like all these scribbles and everything. Just you'll see. So I'm going to take this folded up paper towel. I'm going to wring it out until it's just barely moist, where like when you squeeze it, pretty much nothing comes out. And then I'm just gonna take this stamp thing and start, you just kind of like do like little short sweeping motions almost. And it's just gonna, we're gonna activate this yellow. And if you do this too hard, you actually will just take the color right off. But eventually, the paper towel will start to pick up that pigment, and you can actually end up kind of using it like a paintbrush with your finger. This little line right here, this is a bone in his cheek, and that if you get a little bit of yellow on it right now, that's fine, but that's actually going to be white. Same with this little flap of skin right here behind his mandible. That also is white, but we're going to airbrush that later. This system is not my own. I did not come up with this. This is actually a system by Rick Crane. He's a world champion fish taxidermist from somewhere up here in New England area. But he developed this over the last 25, 30 years of doing fish. And it's really quite incredible how lifelike these fish end up coming out. I actually just learned how to do this year. Last year, using this system. So I'm just trying to get all these colors, all these little scribble marks kind of blended out here. We leave this white down here. We're gonna stop here. I think this is pretty good. I'm just gonna bring a little bit of yellow down here using what's on the paper towel. His bronze seagull rays are actually on an open mouth bass. They would be like flared out right here and all open, but you don't see them right now because they're all accordioned up, closed up right there. So that is going to be that for this side. I'm going to do the other side, and then we'll come back and show you the next step. When you're working with lacquer-based paints, which all of these are, all these different colors go into different fish, I cannot express the importance enough to you how important having a respirator is. It doesn't have to be this extravagant, but it needs to filter out paint and paint fumes and all that kind of stuff. You got to wear a mask, and I also, you'll see, I throw a fan in that window. I'm in my basement. I throw a fan in the window, and that draws all of the fumes and everything from the airbrush paints. It draws it right up and out that window so that I'm not breathing it in. On top of that, I'm also wearing this. So got to be protected. You don't want your lungs getting destroyed by this stuff. It's just not worth it. All right, I got my airbrush there, which actually, as you can see, it's broken a little bit. I dropped it on the floor, but I'm gonna kick this on. Air compressor. Get this lacquer out of the way. And the first color that I'm going to put on here after this base yellow is going to be a dark bass green. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put some of this dark bass green. Again, the very top of its back is the darkest on a bass. I've got this thing spraying on pretty heavy, actually heavier than I'd probably like it, but I only got one hand here. Oh. Okay, something you guys didn't just see. See how this is dark? This is all light again. I accidentally missed a step. So the nice thing about working with lacquer-based paints, got my lacquer thinner right here, squirted it on a paper towel, and wiped it all off. Then I re-scribbled with the yellow, and then did the paper towels again, and now I'm back to square one. The other thing that I went ahead and did is I got my bass belly white, belly transpire, painted around all these white areas where the skin folds are, underneath where the Brunswick rays are, and along the belly. And then on this fin down here, the anal fin, the bottom of it is white. I just went ahead and finished that up, did all my white first. Now if I'm careful, I won't have to come back and do white at the end. The part that I skipped by accident that is actually very important, I almost decided I just won't do it, but it's so important. This warm gold pearl. It's, if you can see that in the light, it glimmers gold. When you look at a bass in the sunlight, you can see that. And I can show you, I'll show you a picture of the other bass that I did a couple days ago, where you can see how important that is. But that needs to be on top of this yellow and underneath this darker color. There isn't a whole lot of it on the face, so I'm not going to worry about it on the face for this one, but I did need to get it on the body to where it glimmers in the sunlight. So I had to get that color on, so I needed to go back to square one. Alrighty, so here's where we're at after using the dark bass green. As you can see, I brought it all the way down to just above the belly line. It looks like this on both sides, so it's darker at the top, and it gets a little bit lighter as you go down. I just, I did the mandible and his lower jaw and everything, a little darker around the eyes, a little bit lighter on the cheeks, all this stuff. Okay, so I got the compressed charcoal. They're in little sticks. I just broke one off and sharpened it a little bit. This is what I'm going to use for our barring pattern. If you look at reference pictures, you got basically a solid bar all the way until, draw an imaginary line between your soft dorsal here and your anal fin, right to there. That's about where that solid bar stops, maybe just forward. So I draw that line, take my finger, the width of my finger is where I'm going to start with the solid bar. So it's going to start right there. Actually, one thing I need to do, see how that scrubbed off all the paint? There's one thing I'm going to do right now real quick. I can cover this up, no problem. I'm going to go ahead and seal this with a matte finish. I'm going to go ahead and seal this with a matte clear enamel. That way I don't accidentally scrape off any of this stuff. Ladies and gents, I forgot to film this, but basically I started to film it on the other side and then I scratched it, but I started the same way with this. I don't know if you can really see it, but the bar is solid all the way until about here, and then it starts doing its thing. Northern strain bass, typically the barring is all connected for the most part. Down in Florida strain bass, Texas strain, you're gonna have like diamonds, like individual diamonds. But I take this charcoal and I make my outline following the reference photos. So I have a picture of my son's bass, and that's where I'm getting these different markings, where they dip down, where they dip up or jut up high. So that's where I got these markings from. If you're just doing a bass for fun, just make it up. Just make it however you want. Just be random with it. And so I just make the top line, and then I make the bottom line, and then I just kind of scribble in the middle. And then I'm going to come back and, well, actually, I'll just do them right now. Just make these random little circles, triangles. These parts are going to be so subtle that I don't usually follow the reference photos so much on that upper part, unless there's something really that sticks out. Like if the fish has a big black spot somewhere, then I'll obviously put that on, or if there's distinct markings on the face, whatever. Same with down here. I actually am going to do these a little bit differently, but I'll show you that in a second. So then basically I take my finger. This is where I use the same system but a different technique with these. I use my finger and just kind of blend all this charcoal so you don't have that rigid charcoal look. Because again, this northern strain largemouth, much softer, not so rigid look. So you can see it's starting to color in, it's filling that in. nice thing about charcoal is it rinses off really easily. A little soap and water and you're clean in no time. So now you can see I got that barring all set. It's a little bit darker than I would like, which is fine because I can take a clean finger. Okay, so now it's lightened up a little bit. It's hard to tell on the camera, but and just kind of very lightly do these other circles here. Just the happy little scales. All right, so just subtle, not too dark. All right, I just washed my hands. So now I'm gonna do the barring that's on the face. Again, northern strain, not too detailed. Sometimes you don't even see the barring. On the fish that my son caught last night that I'm using reference photo to do this bass with, this is not a repro of his bass. This is a little bit bigger, but I'm just using his picture for reference photo for this top back corner of the cheek is dark spot. The top line is going to start right in the middle of the back of the eye and come straight out, pretty much straight out to the tip of this. So we're just going to do a little line. Here's the other important thing. The barring skips over this bone. The next one starts almost the same spot, just like down a little bit, and see the other one starts right here in the corner of the eye. This one starts right there, and it's going to come on about the same angle as your mouth. And we're going to just go like this down here. Okay, again, it skips the bone, but right here at the bone, it's going to turn and level out. Instead of continuing down on this angle, it's going to be leveled out. Just a real short piece. It doesn't go all the way to the end of the gill plate. So we're just going to stop right there. Just going to kind of randomize this. Now this part, this one starts like right here, the front third of the eye, and it comes down right along the back side of this white skin fold and stops right about there. I'm going to go up there like that. I'm just going to put some random color here. And then this bar actually the bar is actually on part of his lip too, on his mandible here. So we're gonna put that on here too. Take our finger, and we're just gonna very, very lightly. I want these to be real subtle. This part can be dark, nice and dark. Okay, so I've kind of skipped a couple things because I realized that I don't want to show you everything if somebody's going to win the DVD here, but and I'm no professional, but I like the work that I do. But anyways, basically what I did was I took my airbrush and I took this black, or not black umber, no it wasn't, it was scale detail black, and I just went over very lightly onto the bar pattern and onto here and on all these, and just filled it in with the airbrush a little bit. And then now what I'm doing is I'm taking this this liquid scale stuff, copper gold, and it's called scale tipping. Just get the tiny little brush. Let me get the camera in here. You just paint on the scales, not every single one, just kind of random, and then do this all over the fish. And then when you turn it in the light, when you turn it, it gets that gold shimmer. Usually they're up on the top of the back. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back over top of this with medium bass green with the airbrush and just kind of darken them down just a little bit so they're not like pow, popping out at you. And then we're pretty much wrapped up at this point, and then we're just going to get some gloss. So that's pretty much the process, and I'll show you cleaning the eyes in a minute here, and then we'll give it some gloss, make it look wet. And then the only other thing is I paint the fins. They get painted separate. So there's black on there right now, and then I'm going to paint some yellow on there, and then we'll install those with epoxy. Those will get epoxied in. So we just got a couple more steps here, and we'll be all set. Just got a little bit of lacquer thinner on this Q-tip and very carefully cleaning off the paint, overspray off the eyes. Can't rub it onto the actual eyelids themselves because then it'll take the paint right back off. And then we'll be back to square one and that would stink. So I gotta be very careful. Then I flip it around and dry it. And then what I'll do is I'll take the Windex and another Q-tip with Windex on it and clean the eyes, make them shiny, and then that'll be that before glossing. All right, so we got to this point, and alrighty. So I apologize, I didn't film a couple of the last steps that I just did here, but my camera died. I did take, I don't know if you can see it in the camera light, very subtle flesh color underneath there, under the gill rays. Literally just took flesh that I use for white-tailed deer. Mostly flesh, a little bit of sienna. It's like a darker red color. Mixed it together, gave me the perfect color. Gave me that color. Very light coating, just underneath those Rochester Eagle rays. Now the last step is to clear coat it, which I've already done one coating of because I forgot to do that. Luckily I hadn't sprayed that yet. And then we're all set. Other than, you know, installing these other, those fins. Okay, so as I mentioned, the last step is to clear coat this.